Well, good morning, everyone. It's Bruce Firestone here, and today we're going to construct a spreadsheet which will help you understand how to calculate cap rates, also called capitalization rates, and internal rates of return. So I'll do my best to get it right, and we'll have some fun. Let's see, we'll put in the date first, May 13th, 2017. And I won't tell you how early it is because entrepreneurs get up early. That would be me. And I'll give it a title, cap rate, and internal rate of return. All right, so we're going to see if we can figure out how to do that. We'll bold that. And I've done another one of these, which is already on YouTube, but I thought I'd see if I could start one and right from scratch. All right, so let's put down PP, and that stands for purchase price. And I'm going to put another row in here, and I'm going to say this is a, say we're buying a duplex. We'll say it's a single family home with a basement apartment. All right, that's probably pretty typical of what an investment might look like. So we'll call that, that's the one we're doing. And then we're going to do another one. I'll just move it over here. At the same time, we're going to buy a small retail plaza, and we'll see if we can figure out how to do that as well. All right, so we've got these two. Maybe I could put this over. Yeah, that's fine. All right, I like to put another line in here, and I better save it too, right? You know what happens just in case my computer goes woof. So where am I going to put it on my computer? I don't know, I'll put it under coaching. And I'll put it under forms. And do I have one on, I probably have one on internal rate of return. Let's see if I've got one. I do. So we'll call this cap rate. And I don't like to leave spaces, right? So cap rate slash or hyphen internal rate of return video example. And what I'll do after this video is over is I will put this in Dropbox, and I'll make sure on YouTube that the link is there so you can download it. All right, so let's say you bought this one for $350,000, which is a pretty typical price in small town America or smaller cities in Canada. Now, obviously, it wouldn't work in Toronto or San Francisco or Boston. And you bought a retail plaza. We'll just make up a number for $1 million. So it probably has, you know, probably 4 stores or something like that. And then you've got closing costs in Ontario, things like land transfer tax, legal fees, solicitor fees, attorney fees, what have you. And we'll say that's 2.5%, all right? That seems reasonable. And that includes land titles in Ontario. And we'll assume it's a similar kind of number, so we multiply 2.5% by that, and I'm hitting the enter key here, so that's how I got that number. So you have some closing costs. So let's just sum that up. So your total purchase price, including your closing costs, looks kind of like this. I'm just using the sum here at the top. All right, so now you own a house and you own a small plaza, and I'm going to say there's some renos, because typically you do some renos afterwards. And in this case, you're going to add, say, a basement apartment. And that costs you, say, $80,000 to do, which is pretty typical in a place like Ottawa or Winnipeg or Austin, but not so typical in, as I said, in Boston or Portland or Seattle or Toronto. Okay, and here, I don't know, maybe we add a sign band, and, you know, we add some more, I don't know, doors, you know, we freshen it up. I don't know what it might be, but we'll call it a fresher upper. I don't think that's a word, but there you go. And we'll say that you spent $175,000 on that. All right, so your total cost for this house now has a basement apartment, and this plaza, once you've tidied it up a little bit, is about $1.2 million, and the house is there. So that's your total cost. Hope everybody's following along so far. It's pretty easy, right? Okay, so what is your mortgage looking like? All right, we're going to say you get an 80% LTV, and I'm sure everybody knows what that's stands for, loan to value. So your mortgage is going to be 80% of what you paid for it. That's assuming that the appraisal comes out at that number or close to that number. Now you remember, appraisers are hired by lenders, or you pay for them, but they're actually loyal to the lenders, not you. So you have to do what's called a CMA, comparative market analysis. You could do it yourself if you know how to, or you could get a friendly realtor to do it for you, to support that the appraised value, in other words, the fair market value, FMV, which is what an appraisal uses, is at least as high as your cost. That's kind of what you should be trying to achieve, all right? And I deal with that elsewhere in various videos. And here, because it's a commercial transaction, maybe you only get 65% loan to value. So that's not very good. But banks and lenders tend to be much more conservative. So what you're going to do in the case of the commercial is you're going to end up with a second mortgage because maybe you don't have enough cash to buy it, right? I guess I should spell that correctly. All right. And say the second mortgage, we're going to ask for a second mortgage of, say, I don't know, well, just to make it the same as the other one, a 15% loan to value. And you're going to ask that from the seller. So that's called a seller take-back mortgage. In other words, the seller himself or herself, they give you some financing, all right? So we're going to assume that they'll give you a second mortgage. Okay, so that would be equal to this guy times the 15%, and I'm going to hit the enter key again, and that gives you that number. So you've got a second mortgage. Here your second mortgage is 0 because you presumably don't need one. All right, so how much equity do you need in each of these buildings? All right, so what cash do you have to have in order to do something like this? In this case, at the end of the day, after you've finished your renovations and you've mortgaged it, you need about $87,000, almost $90,000 of cash. And I've simplified this example because while you're doing these renovations, it's a little bit more complicated. In other words, you might have a mortgage and a seller take back here, and then once it's finished and you've got the renovations done, you might do a takeout mortgage. I'm just going to simplify it so that the calculations are a little easier. In this case, you need cash on hand. You need the 1.2 million minus 780,000 you got from a bank or a lender, and 180,000 you got from the seller himself or herself. So you need $240,000 to buy a Plaza. And I know that there's a lot of people out there teaching you how to buy property, no money down. That's a little bit more problematic in 2017 than it was, say, in the 1980s. Okay, so I don't want to mislead you. So this is going to amount to about 20% down. In this case, a little bit higher than that, 24% down. And here you've got 80,000. So let's just see what that number is. 87,000 divided by your cost, or what you hope is your fair market. So that is 20%. And this one is equal to, right, we know it's going to be divided by that is also 20%. So there you go. That's a kind of a check. You always want to make sure that your numbers got to add up. So we checked it. It's right. So you do need some equity. How do you get that equity? Either you have it from savings, or I did a deal with one of my kids last year. She needed about $100,000 to buy her first home and renovate it. And she put in 5,000, and Pops, that would be me, put in 95,000, but then she put her hands on her cute little hips and said to me, but it's still 50-50, right, Dad? That's what it's like if you have kids. I'm sure you know that. So anyway, how do you get that equity? You get it from savings, you get it from family, you get it from rich Uncle Buck, maybe as a loan, or you bring in a partner or investors, and there's ways to structure that. But anyway, you do need some money these days in most real estate transactions. Okay, so now let's see what your rentals look like, okay? Oops. No, I don't want that. I don't know what that is. Rental. I probably hit some rental. So let's say you've got I don't know, a 3-bedroom, 1.5, 1.5 bath home. So that's upstairs, right? In a lot of small towns, you're going to get about, I don't know, we'll just make up a number here. I like the 5, so I'm going to say you get $1,875 a month for that. And then you have, you know, for people who know what I'm doing, you've got a tech package. You're charging them for internet, Wi-Fi, Netflix, Shopify, Spotify, a few other things, large screen TV. So you're going to charge them, say, $135 a month for their tech package. And they have to pay some utilities. I call them utes. That's from my 7 years in Australia. I think we call them utes there. I don't know, you're going to in Ontario, our utilities are crazy high. Probably in your jurisdiction, they'll be lower. I think Ontario is one of the most expensive places in North America now. I think we pay 24.5 cents per kilowatt hour. So you have some utilities, you have your tech package. Oh, maybe you charge them some property management fee. I don't know, we'll charge, say, 8% for that. And so multiply by 8 and hit the enter key. So $150 a month. So the rent you're getting from the upstairs is around $2,300, and that's pretty typical in Ottawa, you know. And now in various U.S. towns it might be quite a bit lower. Now all these cells are linked, so if it was in your town, if you download the sheet and you're getting, say, $1,475, you just put the $1,475 in here, hit the enter key, and obviously it will change, right? So I'll go back to $1,875. All right, and then let's look at the basement flat, and we're going to assume that's 2-bedroom, 1 bath. I don't know if I got it right, but there you go. Just fix up the spacing again. So maybe you get, you know, 2 people are sharing it, so maybe you get, say, $980 for that. Again, it's per month. These are Canadian dollars, but could be American as well, maybe Australian, New Zealand as well. So, okay, and we're going to bring one tech package into the home, but we're going to share it. So we'll charge these guys a little bit less, $115 for that. And they have to pay some utilities, but maybe they use a little bit less, so we're charging them, say, I don't know, $170. And we're going to do the property management fee again. Even if you're managing your own property, you should probably charge a property management fee. I mean, your time is worth something, right? So we'll multiply that by that. And then these guys, we also had a little shed. I love sheds in your backyard, and these guys have lots of snowboards and stuff, so they rented it from you for $85 a month. And that's part of the animation stuff that I like, right? So I like tech packages. That's kind of animation, right? And then the shed in the backyard. You could probably put a nice Amish shed in your backyard for $2,500. Say it cost you, with a bit of footing and foundation work, it's $3,000. So you put it in there. It's got like a 40-year lifespan. I've got one Amish shed that has lasted 40 years. I've replaced the roof once, and the only reason I replaced it that one time was because I think a tree fell on it, so it didn't wear out. It's a metal roof, right? So just to show you what a cap rate is in a very simple term, so you're getting $85 a month, right, times 12 months a year, hit the enter key, getting about $1,000 a year on this shed, you know, because, you know, your tenant needs some extra storage, and that's kind of your net operating income on your shed. And so your cap rate on that thing, I'm running out of room, so I've got to put in a column here, insert column, there you go. So your net operating income divided by your cost of putting it in, you're getting like a ridiculously high 34, and I like to put 1 decimal in there, those things, so there you go. You're getting a 34% net operating income divided by cost, cap rate on that capitalization rate. I'm going to come back to that and explain that a little bit more. So you're doing pretty well on your shed. On your tech package, let's just look at that. Your tech package, you're getting from the upstairs tenant $135, and your downstairs tenant you're getting $115. So you're getting $250 a month. And your cost for bringing a tech package into the home is probably going to be about $120 a month. But what I also do is I have a guy who charges me, I think it's $35 a month to operate that thing. So the total cost of bringing that package in a month is that, about 155. So I know it doesn't look like a lot of money. You're only making just under $100 a month on your tech package. But real estate is, I'm going to put it up here, get rich. Okay, that's exciting. Slow. Sorry about that. So all these little things that you do to enhance what you're doing, if you could make almost 100% ROI, return on investment on your tech package, you can make 34%. All of these things are really important to boosting your overall cap rate. And even this 8%, that you're paying yourself, a lot of property managers will do it for 5.5 or 6%. And certainly the people I'm involved with, I really encourage them to charge 8% and much higher if they're doing Airbnb. So if this was an Airbnb thing, because there's a lot more work, charge a higher rate, even if you're doing it yourself, so you don't underprice it, right? So that would be for Airbnb, which we're not doing here. Okay. All right. Excuse me. So what's our total for the downstairs apartment, right? Let's see. That's per month. And, typically you'd have 2 young professionals maybe sharing. And, if you had young professionals, and say you had 2 of them sharing, as a reality test, I guess I should change the format on that to, just change it to a number. Don't need the comma separator, obviously, 2. So that, that works out to this per month. So each, right? Which is kind of a reality test. It doesn't look that bad, right? And remember, that includes internet, Wi-Fi, Netflix, Spotify, Magic Jack phone, large screen TV. And this tech package thing is terrific. The moment your tenants move in, everything works. Because you know what a hassle it is to call up your service provider, and sometimes there's more than one, and get everything working. It can take weeks, and it's quite expensive. So from the tenant's point of view, paying you, the landlord, $115 or $135 a month is actually probably a pretty good deal. Now let's save this just in case my computer gets wiped out. All right, so let's just keep going now. So what is our total income on this building? We're going to say it's equal to this guy. Oops, no, that's wrong. This guy plus this. So that's what we're making per month. And obviously multiply that by 12, hit the enter key. So PA stands for per annum or per year. So that's pretty good income. And then you've got to put a vacancy allowance in. I don't know, we'll put in, say, 5%. That seems to be the industry standard. So we go equals, and then I put a minus sign in here, 5% times this baby. All right, so we got to deduct that. All right, so that's what we have. Our total income less a vacancy is about $43,000. That's pretty good on this building. And that's very typical in a town like Ottawa, which is a government town, but it has other economic engines. It has technology, real estate, obviously, health, education, and tourism. It's a pretty big tourism place because it is the nation's capital. All right, so what do we do next? Okay, so we've got income. Now, what are expenses? Okay, I'm not going to go through all the expenses, but the expenses on the building are typically, all right, I'll just write them down here. Property taxes, utilities that you have to pay, insurance that you have to pay, some maintenance and repairs, maybe a million other things in here. Oops, I guess I should spell that right too. I am a 3-finger typist, so I'm sorry if it's slow. And typically that number is around 24%, but it can be as high as 30%. So it's in that range. So I'm just going to estimate it for our simple model here. So equals, and I put the minus sign in, 24 times that, hit the enter key. So we've got about another $10,000 in costs, all right? And it could be, like my daughter I mentioned earlier, she bought a house. Hers is pretty high. It's like 29%. So let's just use a different number then. Let's use 27, just in between, all right? So you've got almost $12,000 in expenses. Now this is, the next line is really important. Net operating income. All right. So net operating income is simply equal to your annual income after vacancy allowance. And I'm adding, because this is already a negative, your costs. So your net operating income per annum on this building would be $31,693. Now, I have to tell you, I'm going to save it again. Even if this were your own home where you were living upstairs and maybe you're renting the basement apartment, you would still put in this number and all of these numbers here. In other words, I tell people to treat their own home, their own principal residence, as if it was a rental. Because if you ever move out, you want to know what this building can do for you as a rental. Because I don't believe in buy and flip. I believe in buy and hold and pass on to your heirs. People have been doing this in Europe and wealthy families in Canada, the United States for years, decades, centuries, in fact. Why don't we do it, average people? Why don't we do it? It may not be that you'll have hundreds or even thousands of properties. You might end up with a principal residence and 4, 5, or 6 residential rentals. It might provide you with $10,000 a month in income. That's not the worst thing that ever happened. And then one day you die, you pass it on to your heirs, and they benefit from all your hard work. All right. So your net operating income, and now I can go back and explain what that is. All right. So let's just think about this. Say instead of in needing a mortgage, like most of us do, you're just a rich dude, okay, or dudette. I don't know if there's such a word. So you needed $438,750, okay, to do this project. And say you just had that sitting in your bank account. I don't know what the hell that is. Excuse my language. $438,750. It was just sitting in your bank account. All right, so let's just go here and we'll equal what our total cost was. Okay, and we'll go up here, equal sign, and go bring it down again just so it's next to each other. So say instead of this, you just had that money sitting in your bank account and you bought this place, and we're going to give it a street name. It's going to be 1302 Any Street. Any street in the town of Anywhere. All right, there you go. That's our, give that a subtitle. I'll italicize that. All right, so there you are, rich dude or dudette, and you put the money into 1302 Any Street Anywhere, town of Anywhere. Yep, and you got net income after paying all of your costs. Because you don't have any financing, so no mortgage, you got that amount, $31,693. So your rate of return, your ROI, which is also your cap rate, which I'll talk more about in a second, is equal to simply this number, how much money you're getting on it, divided by this number, right? So you're getting on this building, and we'll put 1 decimal point on it, you're getting 7.2% on your money, all right? So that's how you think about a cap rate or capitalization rate. If you took $438,000 and you put it into a building, you get 7%, a little over 7% return on investment. Simple as that. If you put it into your bank and your bank gave you, say, 1.7% on that pile of cash you had, okay, all right, that would mean you would have the $438,000 in your bank at 1.7%, it would give you about $7,500 a year from the bank. All right, so skill testing question. We're going to make this a different color. What is better? Would you rather get $31,000 a year from your pile of cash or $7,500 a year? Right? Okay, all right, you know the answer to that. And I'll save it again just in case. I'm going to check down here, see what else is going on. Okay, nothing. All right, so now that's not the only return that you get from real estate. Okay, that's not the only return you get from real estate, right? And if it was, it would still be better than your bank and maybe than your mutual fund and all the other stuff that you might be investing in. At least for me, it's been better. But the other thing that you get is house inflation. Okay, in most places, properties are going up in value, and in Ottawa lately, it has really accelerated. Prices have been going up 5% per annum. In places like Toronto, it's been ridiculous, 30%. San Francisco's not much different. Some smaller towns where I have some people that I coach, it might only be 2%. So, let's kind of pick a number here. So let's just pick a number of 4%. So let's ask ourselves this question, all right? We're going to figure out the internal rate of return because there are three additional types of return that you get from real estate. Sorry, two additional. One is house inflation, and the other is the pay down of the mortgage. Every month you pay down your mortgage, if you have one, right? Some principal's paid off. And if you have tenants in the place, it's really your tenants paying off the principal, but you're getting the money. So we're going to calculate the internal rate of return, and we're just going to use a 3-year envelope. Okay, you could make that 5 years, you could make it 20 years, but just because otherwise this friggin' video will go on way too long. So you notice I've got 0, that's for time 0, that's when you start, and we're talking about a 3-year process. So let's ask ourselves, what is the value of this house after 3 years? That's an important number. So let's figure that out. All right, so we assume that the fair market value when we started was this number, $438,750, right? And we have to multiply that by, and I have to put a bracket here, 1 plus whatever the inflation rate is. Okay, bracket again, you've got to bound the brackets, right? And then if you look at the number 6 on your keyboard, you'll see above it there's a little symbol called, which looks like a hat. And if you hold the shift key, you can get that hat to come in. That allows you to do an exponent. All right, an exponent is 3 in this case because you were doing 3 years. So this property is worth about almost $500,000 after 3 years, right? So it's gone up from, what was it again? Excuse me. It was $438,750. So it's about $740,000. It's gone up to almost $495. So it's gone up by 50 grand in 3 years. Now, who gets that money? You do, as the owner, not the bank, not the lender, not the appraiser, not your tenants, right? You do. That's pretty cool. Now, it's not cash that you could touch, feel, and spend, which my wife calls IGA money, or Sobeys money, or whatever. It's money, though, that when you refinance, you can take it out if you want to, tax-free. All right, so the house is worth that after 3 years. Pretty cool. Now, let's say you did have a mortgage, all right? We did have it up here. Yeah, we have a mortgage here. What interest rate are we getting on that mortgage? Well, we'll say you can get a 3% mortgage. Some of you guys can get 2% mortgages, and if you have your credit rating isn't quite as good, it might be 4%. So we'll use 3%, and I guess I put another column in here, and we'll say you use a 25-year amortization. I guess I better format that properly. We'll call it a number. And there you go, 25 years. So you've got a $351,000 mortgage at a 3% interest rate for 25 years. That's how long it will take you to pay off the principal. You could change that to 15 years if you wanted to and you had the cash flow, or 30 years if you're a little bit struggling for dough. And again, it was an 85% loan to value. I'm going to save it again. Okay, so let's come back down here. So at time 0, how much money did you put out to do this building? Well, it's your equity, right? So I have to put a minus in because minus represents cash out of your jeans, right? So this red number with brackets around it, it's a negative number. So almost $90,000 went out of your jeans. I really apologize for this, and I guess I need a new computer. So if it pops up again, guys, I'll just get rid of it again. And again, I'm sorry about that. All right, so $87,750 went out the window to get this project off the ground. Now, how much money are you making in the first year? Hopefully you're making some money. So let's look at that. So let's find out what our payments are. So I'm going to put the equal sign in here, and then you'll see under Excel you have all kinds of cool functions up here. This is payment, all right? So this will allow us to figure out what our payment is on our mortgage. So let's figure it out. The rate on our mortgage, if we go up here, is 3%. And I put my cursor down here. Number of periods, Well, I go back here. Number of periods is 25 years. Present value, we start, is 351,000. Future value, we're going to pay it down to zero, right? We want to get rid of our mortgages eventually. And what type of a loan is this? You put in a 0 if you're in Canada and a 1 if you're in the United States, but in Canada we'll put a 0. And so you're paying $20,000 a year on this mortgage of yours. Now, you remember what your net operating income is? Let's go pull that down. What was our net operating income? We had about $31,000 a year net operating income. So, good news. We actually are making a little bit of money on this building. Oops, that should go over here, excuse me. I did a Control X there, and I'm doing a Control V. Okay, cancel that. Sorry about that. So let's just do this. Equals this guy plus this guy. All right. Hit the enter key. So we're making about $11,000 a year on this building. So about $1,000 a month. Not bad, right? And in year 2, we'll assume it's the same, right? And in year 3, it's the same. All right. So there you go. All right. So you invested $87,750, and then you've got this cash flow, you know, kind of for life. It could go 5 years, you could go 20 years, you could go, well, if you're a young person, you could go 50 or 60 years. People are living longer, right? But to bound this thing and to understand what value you've created for yourself, you have to do more of a calculation than this. So in the 3rd year, we're not selling the building. We're going to value it. Okay, so this is the Warren Buffett methodology for doing this kind of thing. So the Warren Buffett methodology would say you buy something, you improve its operations, you build up its cash flow, you increase its value after a few years, 2 or 3 years, 4 or 5 years. You don't sell it, because if you sell it, you'll have all kinds of transaction fees, maybe some income taxes payable, maybe some legal fees payable. In the case of real estate, maybe some realtor fees that you're paying. But you do value it, you refinance it, and you take some money out, tax-free, because it's finance, it's not a sale, right? So it's tax-free, and then you do it again. So it's kind of like a perpetual motion machine. So what are we doing in year 3? Now we have to figure that out. All right, so to figure that out, we have to know how much of your mortgage is still due and payable after 3 years. And this is called PPMT, your principal payment. So we've been at it for 3 years at this point, and we've paid a certain amount of principal down. Really, your tenants have done that for you, right? So let's go back up here and find the PPMT function. Here it is. And so now we have to go again and fill in these cells over here. All right, so the rate on this mortgage of ours is 3%. The period that we're dealing with is in year 1. Number of periods, we know how many year periods that is. It's 25-year amortization. The present value of the mortgage when we start is 351, and after 25 years we'll have paid it down to 0, and we hit the OK or just enter. So it means in our first year we paid off $9,600 in principal. Pretty good going, right, guys? All right. So what is it in the second year? Let's find out. So again, the rate, we go back up here and we find the cell with the rate in it. There's the 3% we're paying. And the period, we're in period number 2. Number of periods, we know what that is. We go back up here. It's 25, right? Present value, it started off at 351. Future, we're going to put down to 0. Hit the enter key. And you notice in the second year, we paid off a little bit more principal. So if you know something about mortgages, the amount stays the same, but the amount of interest you pay every year goes down a little bit, and the amount of principal you pay goes up a little bit. So that's a good thing for you as the landlord. You're paying off more of your mortgage. Your tenant is really paying off more of your mortgage. All right, let's do the last one of our years. The rate again is 3%, period. We'll just go back down here. Do this. Number of periods, we know it's 25. Present value, that. Pay it down to 0. I put the 0 in, right? So there you go. So the total principal that we're going to pay off over 3 years on this mortgage is a pretty healthy number. So what is this building worth after 3 years? Well, we know the house after 3 years is worth this. Oh, but we still owe a mortgage, right? We owe this on a mortgage. So if you just go this minus this, it would say that you have now a total of equity in this building of that. But wait a second, that's not quite right, because the mortgage has been, right, paid down by almost 30 grand. So your real equity is equal to this minus that. So this is what your equity is, all right? So that's a good news story. So think about this now. You've gone from $87,000 in equity that you put into this building to get this project off the ground, and you've ended up with $172,000. Why is it so high? It's because you paid some principal down, this guy, right? And the building's gone up in value. So what we're doing with this internal rate of return calculation is we're really integrating three types of returns in one measure. The amount of cash flow you get every year, which is about $11,500 on this building. The amount of principal that's being paid off every year, which is about $10,000. And the inflation that you get. And inflation, you know, this building has gone up from, we said the original value was this. So the building in 3 years has gone up 493,000 minus 438,000, 54,000 in 3 years. So on an average, it's gone up a heck of a lot, right? Over 3 years. It's gone up almost $20,000 per annum. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't change, I can't make $87,750 into $172,000 in 3 years in any other way. Let's just try one more thing. I know I'm kind of going down rabbit holes here, but let's just make this up. So let's say you took your $87,750 and you put it in the bank instead. So you remember that was, your bank was going to give you 1%. So after 3 years, you would have turned your $87,750 into how much? Well, that's easy to figure out. That's equal to $87,750 times, remember the bracket, 1 plus whatever the increase in value is. And then you bring in the, hold the shift key down, get that little hat again, and you're doing 3 years, right? So, all right, another skill testing question for you guys. I know this is really simple stuff, so forgive me if I'm emphasizing it, unnecessarily for you. But anyway, if you took that same 87,000, you put it into your bank, and you went up by 1.7% for 3 years, you'd end up with $92,000. If you put it into one of these buildings, you'd end up with 172. Now you extend that over a lifetime, 20 years, 30 years, and if you're a young person, say in your 20s or 30s, 60, 70 years, you imagine the difference in those curves will be huge. So that's why I want everybody to at least own their own home and maybe have a basement apartment or a side yard apartment or a coach house in the backyard. That's the minimum, I think, to avoid poverty. And even if you put it into, say, a mutual fund, and your mutual fund, like my mutual funds basically suck, but even if your mutual fund was, say, did much better than mine are around 2% or 2.5%, but even if it did, say, 4.5%, right, you would have been able to turn your 87.5 into that, right? And I'm going to hit Control Z, and Control Z undoes that, right? So, oops, there was that horrible warning again. What is this thing? Keep the current color. No, I don't want to do any of that. All right, I'll worry about that later, guys. All right, so you can sort of see that real estate can be a winner. All right, so let's see what our real return is in our 3rd year. So we're valuing it, not selling it, but it's you kind of get the hang of what we're doing. So there you go. So what do we get in our 3rd year? At the end of the 3rd year, we've got our $11,536, this guy here, from cash flow, plus we got our, what do we get? This is our true equity, right? So we got another $172,000 out of this building, and we could refinance that to get it. So you could actually realize the cash without selling it by refinancing. But anyway, for this purposes, we just simply add this number in here, and that's our return in our 3rd year. So we bounded it. Now the internal rate of return. Finally, this, okay, can we have a little drum roll? See if I can do a drum roll. Not a very good drum roll. Equals, so we'll go up here in Excel and get a bunch of these guys, and just click on that. I hold the shift key down and I grab all of these values. It's asking me for a guess, but we don't need to do that because these guys, Microsoft's Excel will do it for us. Gives us, and I'll format that a little better, put 1 decimal point in there. That is really friggin' amazing. All right. Now, there's no perfect measure of financial return. There's no perfect measure of financial return. The internal rate of return is probably the best measure, one of the best measures for finding out what your true return is. And lots of MBA type of folks will compare one project to another using internal rate of return. The way to think about internal rate of return is it kind of blends together all 3 of these returns that I've been talking about. Your cash flow returns, your cash on cash returns, money you could touch, feel, and spend, your principal pay down, and also the house inflation. And this says that over 3 years, you're going to get around 36%. And again, comparing it to, say, what you could get from your bank, it's a pretty good return, right? So we compare this and this, right? That is a pretty impressive difference. Okay, so that is now, you are now expert in figuring out internal rate of return on pretty much any property. And just so you know, all these cells now are linked. So if your town, you had to spend $450,000 on the house, just watch this. I'm going to put that 450 in there. I haven't changed anything else, right? All right, so now what's your internal rate of return? It's dropped to, where is it? I hope I haven't missed it. Yeah, it's dropped to 30%. Do you see that? All right, so I didn't have to do anything else, just change one cell. And just change one thing at a time if you're going to do. So if you paid a lot more for this property, right, another extra 100,000, it really crushes your return, right? It drops it by quite a bit. All right, now what if you were in a small town and you could get these great rents that I show here in this area here, all these wonderful rents, but you only had to pay, say, $250,000. So I'm putting in that number. I'm going to hit the enter. Now you're going to get a stupid rate of return. Let's see what it is here. Oh, now you're going to be at 45%. Once you get rates of return north of 30, you can really stop calculating. It's a good investment, all right? I mean, that's really great. I mean, compared to my mutual funds, I have an NHL pension. I have a few other things. None of them have really performed very well for me. But let's go back to the Ottawa case. But as you can see, all these cells are linked, so it's very simple for you to test different cases. And you should not buy any property, whether it's commercial or residential, without doing this. Even your own principal residence. I mean, I understand if you're a very wealthy person and you buy a $5 or $10 or $20 million home, that's fine. You've got the money and you want to spoil yourself. You only got one life. God bless you. Why not? But you know, for most of us, most Canadians and Americans, I think 82% of Americans and 80% of Canadians do not have a defined benefit pension plan. Robert Kiyosaki says your principal residence is normally a liability and a rental apartment is an asset. And the way he defines asset and liability, an asset produces income when you stop working, and liability when you're not working is obviously not producing income. So it's one of the reasons why in my principal residence I have a garage apartment, I have a side yard apartment, and even after I stop working, which I hope never to do, it will produce income for me. So I think you can turn even your principal residence into an asset, and by being smart about it. Now, some people don't want to do that, and they have lots of money, and they have a defined benefit pension plan, maybe from the government of Canada, the government of the United States, or state government, or provincial government. Terrific. But for most people, that's not going to work. In Canada in 2015, the average CPP payout, Canada Pension Plan payout, was $550 a month. Just not good enough. All right, so let's go back over here and see if we can do a little bit of work on this plaza, just to give you guys an idea of what, you know, kind of a commercial building might look like. All right, so what do I start with? Okay, let's start with some rental income. Now, commercial is a little bit different, and I'm going to try and work through this. So I think I said this was going to, we'll say it has 4 bays. You know, it's 4 little bays that are rented out maybe to a pharmacy, a physiotherapy clinic, a registered massage therapy clinic, you know, one of those 7-Eleven small convenience stores, whatever. I don't know. So we're going to say that this plaza was 8,000 square feet. Okay. So square feet. and it has 4 bays. So it means that we end up with 8,000 divided by 4, 2,000 square feet per bay. All right, and in commercial, typically what you do is you charge what are called net leases or rents. All right, so let's say we got on this place here $16 per square foot per year. Let me just open this up a little bit. For net means net of operating costs, property taxes. Oh, I don't know if you can hear it. That's my cat wanting to get in. Too bad, Sammy. You'll have to wait. Operating costs, property taxes, utilities, maybe property management as well. Okay, that's on top. All right, so that's not in the $16. $16 comes to you, the landlord. All right. So each bay would pay you in triple net rent 32,000 PA per annum. All right, and you've got 4 bays. So times that, you've got total of that per income. Now, what's really neat about commercial is that all your operating costs, and pretty much everything, repairs, maintenance, you know, as I said, all these other stuff, the tenant has to pay that over and above their basic rent or their minimum rent, which is $16. So your net operating income is just equal to this guy, right? So now to determine what your cap rate is pretty easy. It's simply $128,000 a year, which is your net operating income, divided by the total cost of this place, which was $1.2 million, which turns into, let's do that, and we'll format it with one cell. So your cap rate, you're doing pretty well, 10.7%. I don't think it was as good as the cap rate over here. Oh boy, I hope I can find it. Yeah. Oh well, no, actually it's better, right? So here on the residential side, you were around 7%, which is still actually a pretty good cap rate. Okay, because a lot of people are investing in bigger towns like San Francisco and Boston and Toronto at horrible cap rates like 2 and 3 and 4%. Don't do that. Do not buy any buildings that don't cash flow. So this one obviously cash flows, and this place over here is actually doing a little bit better. So your cap rate is about 10.7%. And you notice your cap rate is independent of any financing. Remember the financing up here was pretty complicated, right? It was pretty difficult. Now I'm just wondering whether I want to keep you another 5 minutes or so. I know it's gone on now 47 minutes. Do I want to keep you a little bit longer? And show you how to do internal rate of return on this. Can I have a vote? Show of hands? Okay, I'm going to do the internal rate of return. All right, so save it again. All right, so this is a little bit more complicated because our financing is a bit more complicated. All right, so let's now see if we can figure it out. All right, so where do I want to start? Well, we're going to try and figure out our internal rate of return for our commercial plaza, and we'll do it over, again, 0, 1, oops. 1, 2, 3. We'll try 3 years. Okay, how much equity did we have to put in to start? Equals, and put the minus sign in because that's money out of our jeans. We had to come up with almost $250,000 in cash to do this project. And, okay, now what is our cash flow? So we have cash flow of this, right? We're making $128,000 a year, but we do have a mortgage. Or in fact, we have 2. So let's assume that we have a mortgage here. It's going to be more expensive. So I'm going to say 5% on our mortgage. And we're going to only get a 20-year amortization because commercial mortgages, the lower loan-to-value ratios, higher interest, quicker amortization. It's just a much more conservative industry. But we're going to assume that we can negotiate with our seller and get the same rate on the second as we can the first because the sellers are motivated. And it will be the same term. It just makes it easier, right, for me. But that's probably a realistic assumption, right? I mean, the seller has an incentive to, to give you some financing to help make this sale. So what are our mortgage payments? Let's figure that out. So let's go back up here and select PMT, which stands for payment. Our rate is 5%. Number of periods is 20 years. The present value of the first mortgage is $780. Future value is 0. And we're in Canada, so I'll use that. So we're paying $62,000 a year on that first mortgage. What are we paying on the second mortgage? The rate is the same as the first because we're good negotiators. 20-year mortgage. By the way, I like amortization. Don't do interest-only mortgages. How long does it take to pay off an interest-only mortgage? Right, forever. Present value 180. Yeah, you get that right? Yep, future value 0. And Canadian, so we'll do that. So the total amount that we're getting is equal to this guy, plus, because this is a negative, plus this. So we do have some cash flow year. Does that look right? Yeah, I think so. And again, in year 2, a similar kind of number, year 3. All right. But you got to remember as well, we're doing evaluation. So what is this Plaza worth at the end of 5 years? Let's figure that out. So we'll assume Plaza inflation, we'll assume is, I don't know, same as the house. Let's just do that, 4%. I'm going to link that, right? So I'm going to go back over here, see if I can find that 4%. Where did I put that? I apologize if I'm searching around and give you vertigo. Okay, so we got, I like linking cells, so when you change one thing, it changes others. So the Plaza inflation, we'll say, is the same as home inflation, you hope. And so what's the Plaza worth, the value after 3 years? All right, it's equal to the value, including the renos that you did this, multiplied by bracket 1 plus 4%. Remember the hat, and we're going over a period of 3 years. So there you go. So it's worth about 1.35 million after 3 years. Hallelujah. Okay, so I'm going to cheat here, okay? Because the interest rate on both of these mortgages are the same and the amortization is the same, I can do that PPMT calculation once instead of twice. If I did it twice, I'd just keep you here too long. So I'm going to try and get through this a little faster. All right, so the total mortgages that we have on this place is 780 plus 180, right? All right, so we have $960,000 in mortgages. So the principal that we're paying off on the almost $1 million of debt that we have, I can just do it once because these are identical periods, right? And identical numbers. So I'll just do it this way. So I'll go up here, select PPMT. Okay, I got to go get the rate. The rate on it was 5%. I could use either of these numbers. Number of period, we're in period 1. Number of periods we know is 20. Present value is, now I got to remember to go down here and get the big number. Future value is 0. And so we paid off almost 30 grand, right? That's pretty impressive. All right, let's do it again. And I better do it right. The rate is 5%. Number of periods, I might as well grab that while I'm up here. Present value, future value, I can do that. 0 is here. Then I can go down. I have to grab the period. I'm in period number 2. And the present value is this big number, right? So, hey, look, and remember it's going up again, so I know I kind of done it right. And here's the last one. Let's go back here, grab the rate. Got that. Number of periods is 20. Future, we're going to pay it down to 0. Now I have to go grab the period. We're in period 3. Present value is that big number here. Hit enter. All right, so the total principal that we've paid off over 3 years is $91,000. That was in your jeans, right? All right, so let's figure out, we've got the Plaza is worth almost 1.35 million. So after 3 years, the equity is going to be, in this Plaza, is going to be the value of the Plaza minus whatever that mortgage amount was. What was that mortgage amount? Not the big number I wanted. Yeah, there we go. Okay, but we also have paid off, you know, almost 91,000 of the mortgage. So our true equity is this guy minus makes a plus, right? So that's why I'm doing that. So this is the true equity that we have in the Plaza. And so this number at the end of 3 years, we have to add plus that. So now we can figure out the internal rate of return on the Plaza. All right, so that's going to be easy. Equals, go up here, grab the IRR function. I'm just clicking on that. And I'm going to bound it. So from here, hold the shift key down there, hit OK. Wow, that's pretty cool. Format cell 1. So we're making it like a bandit here with this internal rate of return. Now, why doesn't everybody buy, plazas? I mean, they're not that hard to manage. They're kind of fun in some ways. I've built many of them. Why is it that more people are buying? Well, what are the issues, right? The issues is lack of supply. It's hard to find them. Ridiculous prices, because when there's did I spell it ridiculous? I think so. I spelled it right. Ridiculous prices, because when there's lack of supply, sellers can jack up the prices, right? Lack of financing, because banks and lenders are so conservative these days. They might only give you 65% loan to value, so that's kind of tough on you unless you can be smart and get a seller take back. And the other thing that frightens people, and I think rightly so, is vacancies. Like, people have to have a place to live, right? I know there are a lot of homeless people, and I'm not ignoring their plight, but it's not easy to live outside, certainly in the northeast or the Midwest of the United States, or pretty much anywhere in Canada. Living outside is really hard. Being homeless is really tough. Our weather is 6 months of winter. So I get that, but in commercial, when you have a vacancy, it takes a lot longer to rent usually than, it's much more complicated. So you could have one of these bays become vacant, and it could stay vacant for a year. Now, hopefully it won't be that long. I've run many of these plazas, but it can be certainly 6 months. Whereas in a house, if you're in a good neighborhood, if you're in a good city, a city where or town that's doing well, you probably fill them up every 1 or 2 months, right? So it's harder to lease. Now, the good news about commercial is typically, so that's the bad news. The good news is that typically 5-year leases, which is good, and they're typically net leases. So it's a lot less hassle for you, the landlord. So some good stuff and some bad stuff, but there you go. So I think we're done now. I'm just going to go down here, and I'm Prof Bruce. I actually have a name. That's my nickname, obviously, Bruce M Firestone. And I do some real estate investment coaching if you want some, and I coach people not just in my own hometown, but through Zoom or Skype or Google Hangout. I can coach people in Scottsdale and Winnipeg and Abbotsford, BC. I got one young fellow I coach in Stockholm, believe it or not. So I can certainly help you. So I do some real estate investment coaching. I do a little bit of business coaching too. And you can always get me, bruce.firestone at century21.ca. And you can always text me. I prefer people to text me rather than call me. I do have a fair number of clients, and if everybody called me every day, I would do nothing else. So I'll put a 1 before it. 613 762-8884. I hope that's right. So you can text me. I'll put that down. Text. And I do respond to my texts, and I certainly respond to my emails as well. And I do have a blog with lots of good stuff on there, so I'll put that on here too. profbruce.tumblr.com, and you'll find lots of good stuff there. It's free. If you have an ad blocker, don't worry, there are no ads on it. So that's a blog. And I have a personal website, Bruce M Firestone. You got to put the M in.com. More good stuff there. That's the personal website. So if you need anything from me, or if I can help in any way, I'd love to. My coaching is actually pretty inexpensive. I have a base rate of $650 per month. And I have to charge tax on that, so there's an HST on top of that, harmonized sales tax. So it's not very expensive, and it is a 9-month program. If you want to join up, you're welcome anytime, and I'll do my best to fit you in. But if there, even if it's just to ask a question, you can always text or email me. I'll do my best. And I'm sorry it's almost an hour here, but thank you very much for listening today.